So we're going to talk about engaging around interest and engaging in real time. Now here's another one in a minute. Last thing, this is someone talking about it as it's happening. So it wasn't just a teaser, and it wasn't just a photo of the performance, but fans engaging while it's going on. This also means you can deal with things as they happen, but I'm going to show maybe a less pleasant example. I'm not sure if all of you saw this, but there was a helicopter crash in London in January, which was both shocking and terrible in the sense that people died. Here's what happened on Twitter. This person, Aaron Rodgers, saw a crash and tweeted it with a picture at 8:03. I'm not showing you every tweet, but just some examples. Somebody else tweeted it at 8:05. The radio got to it at 8:13. So, in terms of breaking news, significantly later. Someone else talked about it a bit later, maybe a bit shaken up to tweet right away. There is a story within Twitter. We actually have signs in Twitter that says, in case of fire, leave the building first, tweet later, because apparently they had a fire early on and everybody was tweeting, people were tweeting while they were, going out the fire escape. We're having a fire. So Twitter's actually said, safety and security wise, it would be very good if you leave the building first and then do your tweets. So maybe that's what this person was waiting for. And then it's on BBC News. So it's quite interesting that as things are happening live, and again, I'll talk about it again later in terms of how companies can take advantage of it, these mobile platforms are there. Now, again, one of the topics for today is where is Asia in all this? How important are we? And we're pretty darn important. We're not quite at the size of our population in terms of Twitter yet. That's partly because we're not allowed in China and partly because Twitter is a US-based company, so naturally the growth comes in the US first. But depending on how you feel about whether Australia is in Asia or not, which is always a debate, we're a little more than a quarter worth of the world on Twitter, and of course more than that on some mobile platforms, less on others depending where they're from. And there are 200 million active users, and as many of you know, some of the most active countries for us are actually the Philippines and Indonesia, and we'll talk about why in a minute. So, does anybody know how long it took Twitter to get to its first billion tweets? I'm going to let you guess at this, because if you didn't know Sai was doing single ladies, I'm worried about you knowing the tweets. But does anybody want to take a guess at how long it took us to get 1 billion tweets? We didn't start till 2006, so it can't be longer than that. 3 months. That's a good guess. Nicely optimistic, but no. Anyone else? I need a prize. You guys, come on, wake up. Okay, well, thank you for at least guessing. 3 years, 2 days, 3 years, 2 months, 1 day. Kind of a nice little number. Okay, now, how long does it take us to get 1 billion tweets now? Come on, I'm looking at you over here. Someone at least guess. Wake up and tell me something. Sorry? 3 days? Pretty darn close. Have you been cheating? Could you look at my notes? Okay, every 2.5 days. If I had a prize, you would get one. You can have a Twitter handle. So it just shows you how fast everything is growing. And interestingly, not surprisingly, because I'm here and you're here and we're all here about mobile, it's heavily mobile. Globally, 60% of people access Twitter on their mobile. Without the US, that goes up to 80%. 1 in 2 Twitter users start on mobile, which is why I was saying you could do it here while we're talking. And we've got 40% quarter-over-quarter growth on mobile. And there are other great statistics that I'm sure you've heard, and we used to talk about this when I worked for Google too, which is, how many people do this, take their mobile and tweet or go onto Facebook or Google in the bathroom on the commute, which is a little more pleasant to talk about. With Twitter, 40% of people check it in the morning, first thing they do, 40% at night, right before they go to bed. Because it's kind of, I think, like the old days of getting up, going downstairs and picking up your newspaper. So they're using it to connect with the world's conversations first thing in the morning and last thing at night. And companies are using this too. So here's GoJet. Has anybody ever used these guys in Jakarta? I think there's an Indonesian contingent over here. So the green vests means they're insured, licensed, safe. You can tell me if they're really safe. I'm still trying to use Bluebird taxis, but after this, I might have to get on one of the Gojek ones. And they use SMS. That was their primary means of communication, but it doesn't always work for them. And so they've actually are using Twitter as a backup, where they talk about, in this interesting blend of kind of Bahasa and English, their call center's not really working, give me your phone number, I'll call you separately, and it's all on Twitter. So this is a business using the Twitter free service, it's all organic here, to actually reach out to its customers, keep a conversation going with its customers. Here's another one. I don't know if we have people here from India, but this is Hippo. And they made snack foods, started making and selling snack foods in India a couple years ago. And they were really popular. But one of the issues they had, you may know that India's distribution system is just a little bit chaotic. And these guys were in 400,000 stores and didn't have a great way to find out if they were out of stock of any particular item or all items. They hadn't built, they were a startup, they hadn't built, a huge computer tracking system. So what did they do? They engaged with their followers and they also asked them for help. They said, well, their tagline was, hunger is the root of all evil, don't go hungry. And so they encouraged their customers to tell them when they were hungry, and in particular, when they were hungry for Hippo and couldn't get it. And so they built up this whole relationship with customers, tweeting them, going, I'm at this and this store, and they don't have your snack, please bring some. So these guys, first of all, got an engaged following, and second of all, solved their own business problem. Again, organically, using the mobile platform, using Twitter in a free way. I think one of the great things about some of the platforms, and ours in particular, is that it's not just mobile. It carries to laptop, to tablet, to desktop. It works in SMS, and it works on smartphones. And in fact, does anybody know why you can only use 140 characters in a Twitter message? Where did this come from? SMS. Thank you. But does anybody know how many characters you can have in an SMS message? See, this is the mobile crowd. You guys know all this. That's good. I'm going to forgive you for not knowing about single ladies, but if I can find the people at the end, I'm going to get them to quiz you at the end of the day. So yeah, it's 160, and they decided that you needed 20 characters for a handle, which is really too bad. I have a short name. I'm at Eliza Knox, and I'd really like my 10 characters back for my messages. But anyway, it's not customized. So yes, that is exactly why we have 140 characters. And the really good thing, one of the reasons that this has taken off so well in a number of the emerging markets, not just in Asia, but in other places, is that you can use a good old-fashioned feature phone and still be on Twitter. So, as companies, how do you take advantage of these platforms? What can you do? I've given you a couple examples of some smaller startups. Here are other things you can do in an example with a larger company, still sort of startup-y, but one of the things I was asked to do is to say, how can companies and brands talk to their customers and reach out to their customers using mobile platforms and using Twitter? I think one of the most important things companies can do is listen. Before you talk, before you reach out, you listen. So I hope that sounds good, because I say that to my kids a lot too, so I hope I'm sounding persuasive. So here are some things that companies find when they listen on Twitter, and they're on the left-hand side. 70% of the time they can find issues with products or services. People tend to write in when they're angry or upset or complaining or have comments, but it's a good way for companies to hear and maybe distill some things into what they need to know about what's going on with their products. 65% are actually asking about something at the company that it's good for someone to hear and respond to. 60% something around customer service, and 42% are some sort of sales lead. So this interaction is a bit of a mix.